All right, welcome again, everyone, to Living on the Living Allowance. Addressing poverty in your community is challenging, and managing your own personal finances can seem just as hard. Today, we'll look at what strategies have worked for other VISTAs to manage their year on the living allowance. Our presenter will show you ways you can use this budgeting to plan for success, as well as provide tips and strategies for living within your living stipend. I'm your host, Molly Pelzer from the VISTA Training Unit. Assisting me today are our partners, Kate Baldus from the Bank Street College of Education and Andy Clark from Education Northwest. You'll see us in the chat and the Q&A to assist you during today's session and to help get your questions answered. Also joining us today is our presenter, Carly Bruder. Carly is a VISTA alum and is currently a program office with the Massachusetts State Office. Welcome, Carly. I'm so glad you're here to talk to us today about living on the living allowance. What tips do you have for VISTAs?
Thanks, Molly. Before we get started, I want to quickly run through our agenda. We've already taken care of the welcome and introductions. Next, we'll be talking about budgets. Do you already have one, or do you need one? We'll then move on to some resources and tips, at which time you will have a chance to share your own advice with each other. And of course, we'll wrap up at the end with our evaluation. To start, we'd like to take a quick poll of your current situation. Please review the options on your screen and select the answer that best applies to you on the right-hand side of the screen. You'll see the poll popping up now on the right, and we'll just take 1 quick minute to get those answers. So please go ahead and select A, B, C, or D as the answer that best describes your current situation.
All right, it looks like so far most of you have supported yourself in one way or another. And we're still waiting for folks to chime in. It looks like just over half of you have so far. But coming in close second is that people who have other resources in addition to their living allowance. And I'm going to give it about 15 more seconds and then shut the poll down to do some final tabulation.
So what do our final results look like, Andy?
All right, it looks like, yep, most have definitely been supporting themselves at some point before becoming a VISTA. And of course, we do have a mix of people who have other resources available to them right now. And there's a good number of folks who are are kind of on their own for the first time and learning how to support themselves on the allowance.
Great. So we start with this poll because we want everyone to keep in mind that everyone's personal situation is different, and there are a variety of factors at play. There's no magic solution for living on the VISTA Living Allowance. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer. This webinar is simply an opportunity for you to reflect on your own situation, learn some new resources, and share your own tips with each other. So, like Andy said, many of you have already been supporting yourself before, so if you've been living on your own for a while and have a great deal of experience managing your finances, you may only need a simple budget and have opted to take this webinar to get resources for saving money or to find money where you may not have expected it. If your budget is already in place, it's still a good idea to take some time to review it and make any necessary changes. You should already have an idea about what your monthly expenses are and any cutbacks or changes you can make at this time. Even with a budget in place, living on the living allowance can be stressful. Something that helped me deal with that stress was remembering why I joined VISTA. We all know it wasn't for the paycheck, so I tried to keep in mind the additional bonuses that I was getting out of being a VISTA, like the professional development opportunities and the networking opportunities that might not have been available to me in a typical entry-level job. As always, it's important to prepare for what comes next and to try to save as much as possible. There may be a gap between when you end your VISTA service and when you receive your next paycheck. That was something that I thought I would be facing at the end of my service, so I had personally set a goal to have 1 month's rent saved at the end of my service. And when it comes to budgeting, like most things in life, try your best and be forgiving of yourself. Living on a strict budget is difficult. You're all aware of that. Know that you may not have a balanced budget each month, and be prepared to review your budget and update it as needed. So we're going to take another poll now before moving on to talking about budgets. What is your biggest monthly expense? Review the options on the screen and select the best answer for you. So is housing, transportation, any debt or student loans, your grocery expenses, medical, child care, you don't know what your biggest expense is, or another expense that's not listed here. So we're just going to take 1 minute, select the answer on the right-hand side that is your biggest area of expense. Andy, are we getting results in?
We sure are. We've got a little over half of you who have responded so far, and unsurprisingly, housing is right there at the top. Coming in under that is debt, actually, although groceries is starting to climb. So get your responses in. You've got 10 seconds left before we close the poll. All right. All right, yep, it looks, no surprise, housing is still up right at the top as everybody's our biggest area of expense. With debt at the second, a little bit surprising, but I suppose not. And here we go. I can publish the results and you guys can all see them.
Great. Thanks, Andy. So it does seem like an overwhelming number of you said that housing was your biggest expense. Seems like most of you already have an idea of where your money goes each month. So now let's start talking about budgeting. Some of you may find it beneficial to create a budget and want some guidance on getting started with that. At its most basic level, budgeting means being aware of your income, your spending, and your savings. While it might seem ridiculous to talk about saving money on a Vista budget, it is always important to prepare for unexpected expenses. A budget may end up surprising you. If you're getting started with budgeting for the first time, or if you want to recalibrate your budget, an easy way to get started is to track all of your spending for a designated period of time, like a week or a month. A simple way to do this is at the end of every day, write down everything that you spent money on. That includes every little thing, like 50 cents for a bus ride or $1 for a soda from the vending machine, a pack of gum, your afternoon caffeine fix, whatever it is, write it down. Or track it with an app or some type of system that works for you. This will help you see not only where your big expenses are going each month, like your rent, but where you're spending small amount of monies along the way, and those can really add up as well. This information will help you build your monthly budget, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Keep in mind that if you have to make any major changes to your budget, it's easier to do that sooner rather than later. It's always easier to make changes when you're ahead of the curve instead of scrambling to do so after a problem has already come up. So we're going to take another really quick poll right now. Simple yes/no question. Have you already taken the time to create a written budget? And we'll just take 30 seconds for this one since it's a simple yes/no question. So yes or no, have you already taken the time to create a written budget?
We've only got about 10 seconds left to send in your answers, but we've definitely got a majority of you have already contributed, and thanks for that. So it looks like so far the majority of people already have taken the time to create a budget for themselves at some point. Of course, a third of you didn't answer, so I wonder if maybe you were quickly jotting down your budget right as we were asking the poll. In about 5 more seconds, you'll be able to see the poll results yourself.
Okay, great. So this helps us get an idea of who has done a budget, who hasn't, and it looks like a good quarter of you just didn't have a chance to answer the poll yet. So let's talk about actually building a budget now. On your screen, you'll see a sample statement that is available on the Vista campus. This is a sample living allowance statement. You can get a copy of your actual living allowance statement from your personal biweekly income on your My AmeriCorps portal. It's best to do a budget on a monthly basis. You'll start with the amount of money that you have available at the beginning of the month. For most of you, you'll be able to double the net pay, the after-tax amount, on your biweekly Vista pay stub. Note that the amount at the top of this stub shows the gross pay. This is the pay before taxes. In the middle section, you can see the deductions. Vista does deduct federal taxes, but we don't deduct state taxes. We'll talk more about that in a minute. As a Vista, you do not need to pay Social Security or Medicare, nor will you accrue these benefits while serving. At the bottom of this statement, you'll see your net pay. This is the figure that you'll want to use when budgeting because that's the amount of money you'll actually have in your pocket from the paycheck. You get paid every other week, so 2 months out of the year, you're going to get 3 paychecks. Be conscious of how you spend those extra checks. And just a quick note, some of you may be serving on a grant project, meaning that your Vista sponsor pays you directly, not Vista. So the site that you're serving at is who gives you your living allowance. Your living allowance statements will not be available in your My AmeriCorps portal. They'll be given to you directly by your sponsor. Your pay schedule may also vary slightly. You'll need to confirm with your sponsor your exact pay dates. For those of you that are thinking, what are you talking about? I've never heard of this, probably means it doesn't apply to you. And for those of you who are serving on grants, you probably are already aware of that because you've already received a living allowance statement from your sponsor. So there are many examples of budget sheets available. We provide a simple budget form on the Living Allowance page of the Vista campus. Most of you should have already received at least one living allowance disbursement, so you have a general idea of what to expect each pay period. As I shared with you on the previous slide, you'll multiply the net pay on one living allowance statement by 2 to get your monthly living allowance income. If you're receiving other income on a regular basis, like many of you at the beginning poll mentioned that you were, like support from a spouse, a partner, or a member of your household, you can add that to your income to get a total income amount. Vista does not take out state and local taxes from your living allowance. While it's unlikely that you'll owe state or local taxes on your living allowance income, it's still wise to prepare for it just in case, and in particular if you have other household income. Most states have a tax calculator or charts that will give you rates on your taxable income. Those are available on your state website. If you can divide the total amount by 26 pay periods, you can list that figure as a budget line item here. That'll be a negative number. Adding these figures together will give you your total spendable income for the month. Listing out categories for each of your major expenses and reviewing your total costs on a weekly or monthly basis will show you where most of your money goes and potentially where there are opportunities to save. If you use this budget format, you'll see the actual amount and difference columns to document where your money is going and monitor if you're staying within the limits of your planned budget and meeting your savings goals. Your surplus or shortage will tell you how much money you can put towards savings, or if you need to look at your expenses and make some adjustments each month. We discussed earlier that the ultimate goal of a budget is to maximize your savings. This can seem like a daunting task when you're living on such a small, fixed budget. You can find a living allowance calendar in your PSO workbook as well as on the Vista campus. You'll note that there will be 2 months in your service year, where you will receive 3 living allowance disbursements in 1 month. This is because you're paid on a daily rate, not a biweekly rate. You should plan to pay your monthly expenses out of 2 living allowance disbursements, since the majority of months you'll only be receiving those 2 disbursements. In months where you get 3 disbursements, you can put all or most of that money right into your savings to help plan for state taxes, for your next steps, or a personal goal you have, like travel, or as a safety net. And it's not enough to just make a budget. You actually have to follow it. That means you'll need to track your spending. You can track your spending in a variety of ways. Most online banking systems will auto-categorize most of your expenses for you. If not, Mint.com is a great free web tool that allows you to categorize each of your expenses, set budgets for each category, and easily see in charts where your money is going. When I use cash, like I mentioned earlier, I write down every expense that I spend that cash on an index card so that I can track how I'm spending my money and then put it into my spreadsheet on my computer. Tracking your spending over the first month of your budget is helpful to allow you to see where you need to make any adjustments. I also want to take a quick moment to talk about credit. The easiest way to maintain your budget is don't spend money that you don't have. Don't put things on a credit card if you know you're not going to be able to pay for them later. Really try to use credit only in true emergencies and for immediately necessary expenses. Always assume the worst with regards to interest and that those charges that you put on your credit card are going to end up costing you a lot more in the long run. And we've already talked a bit about savings. If you have a checking or savings account with the same bank or credit union, you can often set up automated transfers. Even a small amount like $10 a paycheck or $10 a month can add up. When I was at Vista, I put $25 out of each paycheck directly into savings right off the bat. It was easier to part with it and put it into savings if I felt like I never had it to begin with, and setting up an automated transfer made it that way. At the end of each month, I'd also review my budget and put any additional money possible into my savings account, even if it was only $7 or $12 or a random amount. As small as it was, those small amounts really do add up. We've mentioned several resources that can be found on the Vista campus, and I just want to point out where directly on the campus those can be found. They're located under Life as a Vista, In-Service Benefits. The Living Allowance is the first item that appears on the page, and you can click on the Resources tab to view the information that we've discussed in this webinar. So we've talked about budgeting and how to manage your monthly expenses. Now let's talk a bit about some tips and tricks for making your money go further. The obvious and biggest trick is to try and cut back on or share your largest monthly expenses. When I was at Vista, I served in Boston, Massachusetts, and I made $929 a month before taxes. So I know how challenging it can be to make your money go as far as possible. My biggest expense, like many of you, was also housing, and so my first step was to find affordable housing. That meant that I lived with roommates, and not only did we split rent, but we divided our rent based on room size. So it wasn't just that there were 4 of us and we were all paying equal amounts. Our apartment had some rooms that were significantly larger than others, so we split our rent accordingly. Some folks paid $25 more, and I said I would take a small room and pay $25 less. Again, it only seems like $25 and it might not make a difference, but those little amounts do add up every month. I also made sure to live in a more affordable area. That meant that my neighborhood didn't have a ton of restaurants or stores, and it was located a little bit further from the train line, but it was still on the public transportation bus route. For those of you that may already be locked into housing situations that can't change, you could consider asking your landlord about setting up a rent payment plan, paying your rent twice a month, half each time, instead of in a full lump sum, and that might help you manage your finances a little more easily. Another large expense is transportation. For those of you who drive to work, carpool or rideshare whenever possible. You can look online for commuter message boards or at your office, see if there's anyone who is interested in carpooling. I always try to use public transit when available. It takes a little bit longer, but it's cheaper than gas, and you can spend the time relaxing instead of being stuck commuting in your car. And walk and bike whenever possible. It's free exercise, so you can save on your gym membership as well. And one last thing is to make sure you're getting your reimbursements for travel as part of your VISTA duties. If you're going out to site visits or meetings, your site is responsible for reimbursing you for travel-related expenses for that, and those little trips really do add up. Many of you mentioned that groceries was your largest expense for the month. One thing that's important to do is find the cheapest grocery store in your area. You already know that the cheapest grocery store is not going to be Whole Foods, but maybe it's not actually a grocery store at all. Maybe it's an alternative store like Costco or Target, not something you traditionally think of as a grocery store. You also want to factor in how far you have to go to get to the store. If you're spending a lot of extra time in your car to go to a cheaper store, the gas expenses might negate the the savings on the groceries. Use coupons whenever possible. You can look online or check the paper. Definitely make sure you sign up for the store's reward program for discounts and buy the items that are on sale. Shop sales and generic brands whenever you can. Make sure that you're comparing unit prices so that you're getting the best deal. And keep in mind that prices at the grocery store change weekly, so the cheapest products vary from week to week as well. Another important tip is to only buy what you need. If you buy too much food and you have to throw it away, you're basically throwing your money directly away. Buy less each time and go to the grocery store more frequently if it doesn't cost you a lot in travel expenses. And that'll help make sure that you have less waste with your food. The next monthly expense that we'll talk about is communications and entertainment. And so for a lot of us, that means phone, cable, and internet. So think about what kind of phone plan you actually need. Do you need to have a smartphone with a huge data plan? Or could you possibly get on a family plan or a pay-as-you-go phone? At your home, do you have internet service? Do you actually need internet service? And if so, can you split it with your roommates or even with your neighbors if you live in a densely populated area where your Wi-Fi service can serve multiple apartments or homes? Could you split it with your neighbors? Do you need internet in your home if you do have a smartphone with an unlimited data plan? Those are all things to consider. And also cable. When I was a Vista, I did not have cable, and I was a Vista so long ago, it was even before things like Netflix and Hulu were around, but those cheaper streaming services that are only $9 or $10 a month that get you pretty much all the shows that you want to see, or possibly that you could share an account with a friend or a family member, those will save you money as well. And keep in mind that just because you're living on a budget doesn't mean you shouldn't plan anything fun into your budget. You should definitely be planning in things that you want to do in entertainment. And you should also be looking for cheaper ways to do the things that you love. I really enjoy going to concerts, and that's something that's very expensive. But when I was a Vista, I found a concert hall in my area that let you attend shows for free if you ushered them. And so I would sign up in advance to be an usher for that concert, and then I got to go to it for free. I had a friend that liked to do yoga, and she couldn't afford to pay to go to yoga classes each week, but she could clean the yoga studio one night per week, and they would let her go to classes for free in exchange. I also became a connoisseur of my local library. I was shocked to find that they not only have books, but they have DVDs and CDs. And they frequently had museum passes for free, so you could go to a museum or an aquarium or some exhibit or event that was happening in town. If you are interested in a gym membership, if you can't walk or ride your bike everywhere, ask about a discounted membership. Sometimes gyms have memberships specifically for off-peak hours. They might have student rates that they'd be willing to give you even if you're no longer a student, or a sliding scale based on your income. All of the YMCAs in the country have a sliding membership scale based on income. Always look for free events to attend. Check out your local paper or local websites, and then volunteer at different events. You'll get free admission, and there's usually free food and free t-shirts involved with that as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Carly, for sharing all of these great tips and resources. It's really good to hear how you, as a Vista, even though it was in the Stone Age before Netflix and Hulu, were able to make living on the living allowance work for you. So thank you so much, and we'll all give you a virtual round of applause. And now I would like to hear from all of our participants. Some of you have already shared some tips and tricks for ways that you are living on the living allowance, but please take a moment and start posting some tips in the chat. And in order to make sure that we capture all the tips, please start your post with the word tip, T-I-P. After the webinar has ended, we will post a transcript of the tips and resources and share them with everyone on the Vista campus. And I know there were a few items that have come in already. Someone cleans and gets unlimited yoga classes. There's also a comment about joining some reward or shopping plans, amazing reimbursements, and if you are able to find a cheaper advertised price, that also is helpful. Using coupons is great. Also, someone mentioned applying for SNAP benefits. And a big one, because a lot of us, I'm sure, use caffeine to get through the day, bring coffee to work and lunch so you're not tempted to spend extra money. And another good one from that same individual is using cash instead of a debit or credit card. A really good website was offered. I think it was Crazy Coupon Lady. And really don't forget the simple things about buying generic and also non-brand name items as well. And someone also offered a tip to follow up on your budget, track it via Excel. And the Sunday paper you can buy for $1 from Dollar Tree, which is a great opportunity if that happens in your area as well. So those are all really great tips. I would encourage you to keep submitting items. Just remember to please start your post with tips in the beginning. That's one thing that we want to make sure that you all remember. So we still have some great tips and information coming in via the chat, but we'll go ahead and move on. And just keep sharing how you plan to balance living on the living allowance by also indulging some of your creature comforts and basic human needs that will be displayed on the next slide. Keep sharing those tips and tricks so that everyone can put those resources into their arsenal. Some other opportunities for savings is shopping at Goodwill, resale shops, Salvation Army, etc. In one of our other webinars when we did this one, there was a recommendation of if you would like a pet but can't have one of your own, consider volunteering at an animal rescue or shelter. Both you and the animals will benefit, which I think is a great opportunity. Carly mentioned a couple resources for music, but we also have Freegal Music, FREEGALMUSIC.com, as well as iTunes, Spotify, and Pandora as well. And I know that a few of you wanted to confirm which website Carly mentioned for the budgeting review, and that was Mint, M-I-N-T as in Tom.com. And that web link was also put into the chat. But don't forget to look at what resources your bank might offer, which Carly mentioned. You don't need to go out and reinvent the wheel if something is already able and close to you. Also, other resources that have been popular with the VISTA member community in the past include the Hillbilly Housewife. That website has great affordable menu options. And the list doesn't end here, though, so I would encourage you all to network and find your local or community resources that offer ways for you to help you to live on the living allowance during your service. And so our call to action, you guys have attended this webinar, which is great, but we really encourage you to take a moment, create a budget and a spending plan that will work for you. Make it realistic. Carly shared a lot of great information and resources, and there is more information coming in via the chat, and there's more opportunities available. So keep an eye on any of those community networks that you can tap into, and don't forget to check out the VISTA campus for additional tips, resources, and tricks. And now, because you all have been so patient, it's time for you all to ask some questions. Please remember that if you are going to ask a question, we ask you to use the Q&A function and not the chat. It just helps us track our questions better. And at this time, I will ask our operator, Terry, to come back on and share instructions on how to ask questions via phone. Terry, can you remind us, please?
Yes, if you would like to ask a question on the phone line, press star 1 and record your name at the prompt. Again, press star 1 to ask a question. Please be sure your line is unmuted and record your first and last name slowly and clearly at the prompt so that I may introduce your question.
Okay, great. So while we're waiting for questions to come in via the phone, we'll go ahead and look through the Q&A box for some questions. So let's see. So Sarah asked a question about the mileage repayment. At Vista, we encourage our members to be reimbursed for their expenses if there isn't an opportunity for you to use a vehicle that's part of your organization. But I believe it's on a case-by-case or organization-to-organization basis for mileage reimbursement. Carly, do you have any additional advice to add in that vein?
Sure. The question that came in the chat said something about site versus sending it to the Department of Education for reimbursement, which I'm guessing is maybe some type of intermediary sponsor, or that the immediate site is a sub-site of that larger site. Like Molly mentioned, the process for receiving your reimbursement will vary from site to site. So if your site says you need to send the reimbursement to this office to be processed, then that's the procedure that you need to follow. But it is a requirement of Vista that you be reimbursed for work-related travel. That doesn't mean just commuting to and from the office every day, but if you're traveling on behalf of the organization, that reimbursement is a requirement. But you will have to follow the guidelines provided by your site.
Great. Thank you, Carly. Susanna asked a question about she's having a hard time categorizing her budget. Are there any tips? And to start off with that, Susanna, I would recommend following Carly's suggestion of taking an index card or maybe even having an app on your phone where you write down everything that you spend throughout the day. And don't worry about putting everything in a bucket, but I would think, maybe target 3 or 4 main topics like food, housing, entertainment, other opportunities that you're spending on that you might have, expenses, gas, etc., and go from there. And hopefully that will give you a good opportunity to start categorizing your budget. And as Carly also mentioned, your financial institution or your bank may have a online tool where some of your expenses are automatically categorized. So once you start setting those rules, hopefully they can follow. Let's see. So where can I find good coupons online? There are a number of opportunities and resources for that. I know that we put together a resource guide that will be available on the Vista campus. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 pages long. And one of the groups on there is online coupons. I would also, so you can look there for information, but you can also take advantage if you do some online shopping. You can take advantage of sites like Fat Wallet or eRewards, where if you go to that website first and then you go to another website and purchase something, they actually might give you a small percentage or a little bit money back once you do have that purchase confirmed. So that's another good tip as well. Let's see.
Molly, I also want to mention there's a website called gasbuddy.com for those of you that gas is a large expense, and you can type in your zip code and it will let you know the prices of all of the gas stations in your area so you can find the cheapest gas station available.
That's great, Carly. I didn't know about that one. I should try it. So here's another really great question. How can I be better about sticking to my budget?
I can take that one, Molly.
Yeah.
Sticking to a budget is difficult and it's challenging. So the first thing is to, be patient and kind to yourself if you do find that it's challenging, and don't get frustrated. I found that the trick was to find ways that worked for me. So I could read all the tips and tricks online, but if they weren't applicable to my life, they didn't really help. So what I did was I would write down every single day the money that I spent. And this helped me in two ways. One was it helped me to see where I was spending my money. And two, if I was about to buy an afternoon snack, it made me think twice, because I would think, I have to write this down and be accountable for it. So do I really want to spend this $1.50 on a cookie this afternoon? Do I really need that? That works for me, might not work for other people. And another way, which I've seen a few people mention, is using cash. Cash feels more like real money than a credit card or a debit card does. So I would every Sunday go to an ATM, take out the money that I had to spend for the week, knowing that that was going to cover any expenses that I had for that week. And so then when I was out at a store and needed to buy something and had to spend my real money, again, it made me pause for a second and give a second thought to, do I actually need to buy this item, or do I already have something at home that serves the same or a similar purpose? Can I get by without this item? And then another thing was I just really spent a lot of time reflecting on what I actually needed to have, what I actually needed to buy, and if there were any cheaper alternatives to getting that item. So things like shopping generic, shopping at thrift stores, sharing expenses, whether that's carpooling or sharing a Netflix membership, all of those things. So it's difficult to get started and difficult to stick to a budget at times, but we also talked about savings and having goals, and whether your goal is saving or saving for a particular, savings in general or saving for a particular purpose. I'm someone who really thrives when I have a plan and a goal. So I had said, my goal was to have 1 month's rent saved at the end of my service. And so I broke that down into monthly targets. And then it was a goal for me to meet that target each month. And some people like to work in kind of reward systems. If I meet my target this month, then I can, go buy a Starbucks coffee or go to a movie and see the movie that I want to see or something like that. So you just have to find the tips and tricks that are going to work best for you. They're going to look different for everyone. No two budgets are going to look the same, and no two systems are going to work the same for everyone.
Great. Thank you, Carly. I know that you mentioned joining warehouse clubs or Costco, et cetera. That seems like, maybe you don't need 30 rolls of toilet paper at once, but if you guys go to the Vista campus and use the map function, you can drill down to the community or the area that you're living in and seeing maybe if there are Vistas in your area. You could split the cost of a membership. You can also have some fun meeting up with Vistas in your community and in your area while you're doing shopping, and then you can split up the goods. So that's another good opportunity as well. So let's take another look. And actually, operator, do we have any questions coming in via phone?
No, there are no questions in the queue at this time.
Okay, thank you. Here is a question. Do you pay state and local taxes for your service or your home state when it comes time for taxes? At PSO, we discussed that that federal taxes are taken from your income statement, but we do not take state taxes. You, however, are still responsible for uncovering whether or not you may need to pay your state taxes. I would recommend checking in with your state's website about taxes to see if there is guidance on what the income levels are, and if you're under, sometimes it's the case that if you're under a certain dollar amount, your income, that you do not need to pay state taxes. But you would need to investigate whether or not you are responsible for paying your taxes. So please make sure that you are aware of that for your state. Let's see. So how do I find out the total amount I will be paid each month? Carly, you mentioned this during your comments, but do you want to review that for us, please?
Sure. Everyone who's on this webinar should have already received at least one living allowance payment, either directly from Vista or from their sponsor agency if you're serving on a grant project. And so if you're not serving on a grant project and your living allowance disbursements are coming directly from Vista, you will get a living allowance disbursement every other week. So that means most months you'll get those 2 disbursements. You can figure out how much you'll be paid in a month by doubling what you receive in one living allowance disbursement. And if you're curious about where exactly to find your living allowance statements, it's available in your My AmeriCorps portal. On the left-hand side, there will be a tab for in-service benefits, and it's located under there, and it will have every living allowance statement that you've received so far, and then they're updated every other week when you get paid. For those of you that are serving on grant projects, you'll need to talk to your supervisor about how they distribute the living allowance statements. They might issue paper copies or electronic copies to you, and you've probably received one of them already. Maybe you just weren't sure exactly what it was, but that's your living allowance statement. So you just double the amount that you're receiving on your biweekly statement.
Great. Thank you, Carly. Let's see. Let's go back to the chat, or Q&A, sorry. Let's see. So when will this PowerPoint be available after the webinar? We usually get webinars posted within 2 to 4 weeks. We have to go through some processing, but we'll make sure to get it up as quickly as possible. And let's see. We have some other questions coming in. Beth is saving specifically for grad school. Are there any special ways to save for continuing education outside the Ed Award? That's a great question, Beth. I don't know that I'm aware of any particular resources. Carly, is this something that you encountered during your service, or do you have anything to offer on that about saving for continuing education?
Sure. I can't think of any, well, the only specific resource that I can think of is institutions that might match the Education Award or provide some type of scholarship or honorarium for AmeriCorps alums. And if you look on the website edaward.org, it has a complete list of schools that match the Education Award or have AmeriCorps alum scholarships. The list is, being updated as new schools agree to match the Ed Award, so you can check back frequently. But that's the most relevant resource I can think of.
That's a great opportunity to maximize the Ed Award. That's a great tip, Carly. Thank you. Good. All right. Carrie, do we have any questions coming in via the phone yet?
Yes, we do have one. Sarah Hillstead, your line is open.
Okay.
Hi. My question is there a way to find out, besides just the map on the Vista campus, to find out exactly who else is serving in my area?
The Vista campus is going to be your first stop. I would encourage you also to reach out to the Vista Alumni Network, just in case there might be some members or past members who have connected with alumni. That might be good. There might be some meetup opportunities available as well. Carly, what do you think?
You can also reach out to your state office, and they'll be aware of all the programming that's happening statewide, but also in your geographic area. The email addresses for all state offices are the 2-letter postal abbreviation. So if you're serving in Massachusetts, it's ma@cns.gov. And you can reach out to your state office that way.
The second part to my question, and I don't know if this can happen or not. One of the things that I ran into, only because of where I'm located, if there was a way to, like, before we start our year of service, to find out, like, who is going to be in our area, it kind of partners with the first part of my question for, like, housing. I know when I went to PSO in Chicago, I ran into one girl that was starting in my area, and she was like, well, if I had known, we could have hooked up and we could have gotten an apartment together. And I'm like, well, yeah. I said, but we didn't know. Nothing was ever said.
Sure, and unfortunately, the state offices don't necessarily have the capacity to do that matchmaking up front. We have 7,000 vistas serving nationwide, and a somewhat small staff. We do have, forums on our Vista campus website, and you'll frequently see that folks are posting on there in the different threads about looking for roommates or going to PSO or wanting to connect. And the Vista campus, anyone can access that before starting their service as well. So that's, I know you said you've already started your service, so it's a little too late now, but that is something to keep in mind if you want to connect with folks in your area.
Thank you so much for your help.
Yep.
Operator, do we have any other questions on the phone?
No, there are no other questions in queue at this time.
Okay, great. Well, I think that we've covered most of the questions in the Q&A box. Carly, do you have any final thoughts before we get to the evaluation piece?
No, I don't think so. Everyone shared some really great tips, so thank you for your engagement today.